number 10. And you know what that means? It's the season finale where I'm answering your questions in this Q&A sessions. But before we get going, I just wanted to send a heartfelt thank you for listening, for sharing, for subscribing, and your patronage on Patreon. Your support has been amazing this season, and I so appreciate it. So, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome. This is not a typical episode, so you might want to go back and check out a previous episode from the season just to get a feel for what the show is all about. If you are a returning listener, welcome back. I appreciate you. Now, let's chat. So, I did receive a bunch of awesome emails with questions over the past few days. And thank you so much for all who participated and reached out with your questions that you wanted answered on this episode. First question, what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned from starting the podcast? Okay, this is a tough one because lesson I've learned is that it won't be perfect in the beginning, but you just have to do it anyway. Share your knowledge and provide value. Of course, I want my podcast to be well produced like This American Life, duh, but it's not. And that's okay because This American Life, produced by NPR, in the beginning was definitely not the high quality show we know and love today. But it had value. They saw the potential. They grew over time. And that's what I'm hoping. My imaginings are well beyond my current ability with podcasting and this whole setup, right? But I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep doing it because it's not perfect, but I'll just do the work every day to get closer to that vision that I have in my mind. So I hope that's a lesson that I can pass on to you as well, that in the beginning it won't be perfect. But if you can learn anything from me doing this podcast, is to just keep going and just get better each time that you do that thing. The second lesson I learned is that hustle like mad and the concept of I'll sleep when I'm dead, that concept is major BS. The first couple of years designing and tech editing full time, I was all in. I was working from sunup till sundown, burning the midnight oil, doing all that stuff. But that life was not sustainable. Over time, that hustle burnt me out. I mean, that hustle bro mentality works for some, but it wasn't the lifestyle I was trying to cultivate long term. So I put boundaries in place and created a strategic plan for my business that now I hope to continue to share with this podcast, especially in more details in the upcoming season. So those are the two lessons I've learned with this podcast and with running a creative business over the last 7.5 years. Is perfection is procrastination. Just do it and cultivate the lifestyle you really want long term, and not necessarily look at what everybody else is doing because you don't know what's going on in the background, but just be you. Okay. So that's question number 1. Question number 2. What am I knitting or crocheting on right now? Or what do I knit or crochet for fun? Okay, so unfortunately, I don't knit and crochet for fun a ton like I used to do, years ago. But still, I have a massive stash, and that stash keeps growing. But that's a whole nother issue for a whole nother day. So I don't do a lot of knitting and crocheting these days because it's my business, right? So I don't do a lot of crocheting and knitting these days because it's my business that I knit and crochet all day. So I'm consumed with a lot of my own design and tech editing. And that's not to say that I'm only focused on my own crocheting and knitting of my own stuff. Not at all. I very much enjoy seeing and experiencing the work of other designers. So while I don't knit and crochet other designers' pattern a ton these days, I do buy books and magazines and indie designers' patterns because while I don't have a ton of time because, it's a job to knit and crochet these days, to relax, I like to do other things like, watch TV. Every now and then I'll get my painting supply out, but I haven't done that too often lately, which I really need to get back into. Or I'll make some pieces of jewelry like I used to back in the day. But that's to say that while I don't knit on other designers' patterns, I do like to buy their work. Um, I do like to support the community and see all the fun stuff that's happening, right? Because if I just work on my own things, then I'm just in a bubble and not experiencing the growth and the diversity in the community. And I do want to see all that stuff. That's why I got into knitting and crocheting in the first place. So that's that. That's as far as I have for what I'm knitting and crocheting on. I mean, I do have other things that I'm working on that I really can't share, but that's pretty much what I'm doing for fun. Okay, what has been a big disappointment or setback in your design and tech editing career? So, this is a tough question. I'm not going to lie, there have been a ton, such as submitting to a magazine that I was so sure I was going to get accepted for because I was so sure my proposal matched the mood board and what they were looking for. And no, rejection. It happens, right? And yeah, after all this time and with all my experiences and things like that, it still stings a lot. But then the issue of the magazine would come out that I submitted to, or the collection would come out. And I'm like, yeah, they made the right choice with those other ideas. I would like to think that I'm a big enough person now that I can see that, the vision of what the magazines have, um, the rejection are not personal, right? They're just trying to make the best quality final product, whether it's a magazine or collection or whatever, the best possible product for their audience, you, the knitters, the crocheters. So, I mean, I tend to put a rosy facade on the show about, disappointments and failures. You're seeing the aftermath of working through the disappointments and the sadness that come with being in business. You're seeing the results of a lot of time and reflection to see in hindsight what I definitely was not experienced well in the thick of it, right? All that to say is that setbacks and disappointments that will happen to all of us inevitably. It's how you deal with it that matters. Do you wallow in it and just beat yourself up and just quit? Or do you just take a step back, not take it personal, rebound, and do it again? So while that next quote unquote right step might not be clear while you're in the midst of a disappointment, just keep moving because that forward momentum can take you really far. I know that's a non answer to that question about a particular time that I've experienced disappointment or failure. And I'm sure I've had some disappointment recently, but I don't know. I don't really dwell on them that much right now to give them too much validity in my life. I take the lessons of the experience and I just keep pushing, right? If that makes any sense at all. I mean, I don't want to sit here and say that, oh, well, everything's great. I don't feel bad about it. I just kind of brush it off. It's after a long time of hindsight and reflection that now I can look back and objectively say those things that happened were for a reason and it got me to this point. So I hope that makes sense. I say that pretty lightly, but it's definitely not easy, but it gets easier with time. And I hope that that helps someone out there. Okay, so another question I received, and this is a combination of about 3 or 4 questions that I've condensed into one because I felt the answers were pretty similar. And that question is, When did you know you were a designer with a capital D or a success? So, when did I know I was a designer? For me, because I didn't have a mentor or a coach early on, it took me a really long time to step into that role as a designer, capital D, and to see myself as um, someone who was doing the work that I was meant to be doing. And this is something I teach my students in my coaching session, really to embrace for themselves their roles early on so they can really step into it and just be that thing that they've always wanted to be. Because I think having that label really helps you to really embrace it, you know? Anyway, um, I didn't really feel comfortable with that title for myself. Like I said, I didn't have a coach or a mentor early on to really tell me, you know, to kind of bolster my confidence like that. And that feeling didn't come for me until I was published with a major publication. I had published patterns with yarn companies and other publications before, but this magazine that I read a lot and I purchased a lot of copies in the past, being able to have my name in print in that magazine was pivotal for me, mentally. I'm thinking of myself as a designer, and when I thought of myself as arriving, whatever that means now, but you get what I mean. But and it's the same for when I felt like I had made it, I'd become a success because I was seeing my name in print, you know. But the truth is, my success and the title came well before that, right? I mean, it's not when I started making a full-time living salary. It had nothing to do with money. But looking back, I think it's when I started to feel good about the work I was doing. It was no longer this little thing I was doing on the side and wasn't telling anybody about. It was something I was proud to share. It was something that was big to me, a big part of my life. I mean, well before I was published in that magazine, I was investing in myself, and this was becoming a business. Designing was something that I was proud to show off to my son that, you know, even though this is an unconventional career path, that just about anything was possible. That a dream can be in any size and anything is possible. So I guess the answer when I saw myself as a capital D and saw myself as successful on the outside was seeing my name in that magazine. And I was able to show people, things like that. But in reality, before that, well before that, I was a designer. Um, I was successful. I was doing the work I love. And I hope that helps someone to realize that you don't need to be in a magazine to be a designer, capital D, but you can really be a designer now with one sock pattern under your belt. You know, there are no gatekeepers. There's no one to say that, well, you only have one sock pattern. You can't be a designer. You have to have 10 or 20. No, you can be a designer whenever you feel like that title is yours to embrace. Okay? I hope that helps. Okay. What is the best part about being a designer and tech editor? Answer: playing with yarn. The end. All right. So it's more than that. Of course, I'm playing with yarn all day. Sorta, kinda. It seems like I'm playing with spreadsheets a lot these days, but I do play with yarn a lot. And mostly it's yarn I didn't have to buy, but yet my credit card got a healthy workout from yarn and fiber purchases. It's weird how that happens. But seriously, the best part about being a designer is interpreting ideas to my style and aesthetic, to have a vision of something and bringing it to life, to put my own spin on something that might have been done before, but now it's uniquely me, right? So, yeah, so that's what I love about designing. Now, what I like about tech editing, besides my spreadsheet, duh. And if you're wondering what I use the spreadsheet for, it's for grading and for tracking the pattern from beginning to end, pretty much to make sure it works. Um, so back to what I like about tech editing besides the spreadsheet is seeing how other designers interpret similar ideas. Like when I tech edit for a book or a magazine and I'm seeing the whole collection, it's interesting to see how the mood board is interpreted by each designer in the collection, right? To create a design that is so uniquely different, but so cohesive when all together in the collection. And I love seeing that. I love seeing new designers blossom. They go from very meek and timid about, I have a new pattern. Can you help me tech edit? To, the second or third where they're a little braver. They have more confidence about the work that they're doing. So I love seeing that. I love seeing new or experienced designers with like interesting take on a technique that's been done before. How amazing is it to see a triangular top-down shawl interpreted in a whole different way with different color combinations, stitch patterns, and it's just amazing the different things that I see as a designer that I just want to knit and crochet everything, but there's just no time. It gives me the space to be a wife and a mother that I didn't know was possible. These past 7.5 years working full time in this industry with so many amazing people, and now talking to you on this podcast, weird, I know, has been the best, and that's why I give back so much to show others that it is possible. Don't get me wrong, designing and tech editing is a lot of work. Um, you have to kind of be business savvy or learn some basic business techniques to be able to make a go at it and be profitable. It's not just about having a, a great design if you're a designer, or having great skills at editing if you're a tech editor. You have to put it all together and figure out how to get clients. You have to learn how to work with clients, how to deal with issues that come up. There's a lot around it. But overall, it's given me the ability to do a lot of things that I thought when I was younger that as I got older, I wouldn't be able to do until after I retire. Because now I can command my own time to be around my family's schedule. Because I swear having a teenager takes more work and handling than when he was in elementary school. There is just so much more attention and need that is required to be able to help this young person, right? And that's what I mean as, to do the things as a wife and a mother I didn't think was possible. Because in my corporate job, I would go to work first thing. In the winter, it would still be dark, and it'd still be dark when I get home. So a lot of the household work and child rearing and things like that was not on my shoulders. And now with this job as a designer and tech editor, I can take on a bigger role in my family. And that's not something I thought was possible given the economic climate that we're all in. And, we all need to have a 2 income household and do all this crazy stuff to keep up with our neighbors. So I think that's the most important thing that I enjoy about being a designer and tech editor. And it's something that I'm trying really hard to share with other women. Yes, I know there are men who listen. There are men in the industry. Yes, I know. But I am talking directly to women because that's who I can relate to. That's what I've been. So that's what I can to can speak to. So I'm not telling people to quit their jobs or anything like that. I just want people to know that there are options out there. There is another way. All right, stepping off my soapbox. So when I announced that I was doing this Q&A, I did send out an email to people, send out an email asking for questions. And I did get a few back, and I've read a few of them so far. And I just want to take a quick minute to thank the wonderful folks who did send over an email with their question and to announce who won the drawing for their question. And I just want to take this quick second to announce the winner of drawing number 1. And this was for one email question sent in for this podcast episode. And this was drawn using random number generator. And that person who wins that drawing number 1, is Kathy Green. So please reach out with your info and claim your prize of any pattern from my Ravelry shop valuing up to $10 US. Thank you, Kathy, for sending in your question. I really appreciate it. It was a great one. Now back to the episode. Okay, so the next question I received, and this one, I think I combined a few questions because they were very similar, and here it is. Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? Well, answer, I don't know. I used to be that person that had a 5 to 10 to 15 to 45 year plan. And I do have planning sessions like my CEO days where I'll take a weekend, I'll go away and I'll plan, what I'm doing for the next quarter, the next year of my business. So in a nutshell, I don't know about 5 to 10 years from now because things move so fast. It's hard to imagine where technology, where the industry will be in 5 years, let alone 10 years. So right now I'm really focusing on the next 6 months to a year to 18 months. And I think that's the furthest I'm planning out right now. But I can share with you some of what I'm thinking, and you let me know if you like it or not, or just let me know what you think. So what I'm planning for Knit Designs by Tien and tienconneton.com, the brand and the business, is to do more one-on-one coaching. I really love working with individuals to figure out what their goals are and to help create strategic plans to get them from 0 to 100. If you want to start designing, I want to help you figure out what your first step should be, what your next step should be, and how to really think long term, how to reach out to yarn companies for yarn support, how to work with publishers, how to write proposals, things like that. I really enjoyed that. But I'm thinking instead of just one-on-one, just me to one student, I'm thinking more along the lines of a group coaching program, like me coaching around a single idea for a group of people, maybe 5 to 10 people. Because I know price can be a barrier. So group coaching could make it more accessible to more people. And then beyond the coaching, I'm planning to do more training. I mean, I love teaching and sharing my knowledge. Duh. That's why I'm here. And would love to give it all away for free. But from experience, I've learned that many people get more value and are more likely to take action if they have some skin in the game in the form of an investment. So fingers crossed, before the end of the year, I'll be providing a more comprehensive course with videos and a live chat element to accompany my book, Unlock Your Inner Designer, How to Start Designing. This course I'm imagining will be like I'm teaching a live class. where I'm showing you exactly the steps, the processes, so you can get the information you need and get started. And like I said, I hope to have a live call element to this class. Maybe meeting up in a Zoom call or on Facebook Live or something like that, where we can interact and you can ask specific questions and we can chat back and forth, either one-on-one or in a group type session where we can bounce ideas off of each other and just have a good time learning like you would in a class setting. So if that's something you might be interested in, check the show notes for this episode or go to my website, and let me know what you think. What else? What else? Oh, yeah. So lately I've been teaching around the 4 phases of launching, which is covered in my other book, Pattern Launch Plan: How to Make More Consistent Sales Without Being Sleazy. That book. And again, I want this to be more accessible with more information. So I'm thinking of doing a course on this as well, with videos and live chat element to it as well. So we can deep dive into each phase and develop our own individual systems so you can stop struggling with making sales and really get back to focusing on designing, because that's what we want to do, right? Again, this is just an idea bouncing around in my head. So if it's interesting to you at all, just let me know and we can work together to develop that so you can get the exact information that you want. And I'm not just giving you fluff and just random stuff that you don't really care about. So if any of these 2 course ideas sound interesting to you at all, just leave me a message on Instagram or just leave a comment on tianconaton.com for this episode and just let me know what you're interested in and we can have a conversation there. Now, I want to do one more drawing, the final drawing, and that's for leaving a written review. And I just want to thank everyone who's left a review this season so far. I so appreciate you that it just blows me away when I read these. And the winner for drawing number 2 is P.S. Frankel. And this review was left on August 8th. The title of this is Down to Earth plus Expert How To. And this was a 5-star, so thank you so much. And I'll just read the review real quick. It says, Tian's podcast is one of the best I've listened to and re-listened to. If you want to design, or even if you have already dipped your toes in, Tian gives you steps to take, guides you through the maze of the craft world, encourages you along the way, and talks honestly about all the feelings that might get in the way. The fraudy feeling, the why bother, there's so much out there already feelings, and jealousy feelings. Tian believes in collaboration, not competition. She is generous and open and real. And of course, she's also a fab designer herself. Hers is the wise, loving, experienced voice we all been waiting for. Thank you so much, P.S. Frankel. You can't see this right now, but I am blushing because this is so embarrassing to read. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Reach out when you hear this message and I will get your prize to you. I really appreciate it, guys. All right. The embarrassing bit is over. Talking about myself is just so hard. Another question that came in that I am in love with is designing how to handle yarn support. This is a great question. In the beginning, when you're designing, you'll have to buy your own yarn for your design. I hate to have to tell you this, or use yarn from your stash. Because I know you got them. You have a stash. Just use that. So in the beginning, for your first, second, third, fifth, 10th design, use your own yarn until you've built up, not a reputation, but that you know for yourself that you can handle the pressure of timeline, that you can deliver on a design idea that you propose, and that you have the experience to really tackle a design for a yarn company. Because the truth is, you really just can't expect a yarn company to send free yarn to just anybody. just because they say they want to design something. Have some prior designs under your belt to show them that you are, one, competent, that you can and that you will use the yarn for design, and you're not just trying to get free yarn. Before you reach out to a yarn company, make sure that you've used their yarn before. You're familiar with their work. Start with the yarn that you have on hand. If you like yarn B, buy some of their yarn and play around with it. Design some stuff. Maybe tag them on Instagram and show them that you use their yarn and what you're capable of. And maybe they'll even offer yarn support. But what I've seen, and I don't want you guys to do this because you guys are my people, I don't want you on day one of deciding you want to design, you start reaching out to yarn companies, ask her for 2,000 yards of her most expensive silk and merino blend for a sweater when you've never designed a sweater before. Does that make sense? I always recommend reaching out to brands that you've used before and familiar with their yarn and have supported in the past. Develop a relationship. Some offer a discount and maybe that might work for you. It's fine. I mean, as far as yarn support goes, there are no set processes, but there are some best practices. Like don't be a jerk and be polite. Don't ask for anything ridiculous that the dyer might not be able to fulfill. And don't get mad if they say no, they just can't or they're just not interested, right? And I have an idea for a whole podcast episode. It might be a multiple episode series on yarn support that I'd love to go into deeper on because this topic really needs to be addressed. And I think there are ways to approach this that is beneficial to both the designer and to the yarn brand. And I just want to make sure that you guys are not stepping on toes or causing any bad feelings when you're asking for yarn. Just put yourself in the shoes of the dyer and treat them the way that you would want to be treated. It's like anything else, right? Remember that support is a two-way street. You want their yarn because you support them, and they should find some value in what you're doing as well. So look at it that way. And be clear about what your needs are when you'll be publishing, and be clear about what you need when you'll be publishing that design. Have a solid idea if they ask, because some will ask for an idea. Have links to your portfolio on Ravelry or your website or wherever where they can look at previous work you've done to see if their yarn is a right fit for your design aesthetic. So just treat them the way you want to be treated. Don't be a jerk. And remember that they are people too with a business that they're using to support their families too. So don't put too much of a burden on them. And if they say no, don't take it personal. Just be gracious and move on. Cool? All right. I have one more email. I have one more question. And then we'll wrap it up. So this last email question came from Kathy Green. And her question is, what does a tech editor do? How to become a tech editor, how to get clients, etc. A lot of elements to this question, so we'll try to break it down as much as possible. Be sure this is not the end-all be-all on this topic. We will be going more in depth in a lot of the pieces of this question in season 2. So be sure to subscribe so when those episodes start rolling in for season 2, you'll just get them right into your feed. All right, so this question, let's start with, what does a tech editor do? So a tech editor is not a tester. They're not test knitters or test crocheters. We don't make the pieces to see if it'll work, because if we did, we would not have time to work on more than one pattern a month in some cases. We use math and our experiences to work through the pattern to figure out if there might be hiccups such as math errors, areas of inconsistencies, points where the knitter or the crocheter might get lost or confused by the pattern, or worse, areas where the knitter or crocheter might misinterpret what is intended. So the role of a tech editor, we check the math, the grammar, we check the grading, which is the sizing of the pattern. So if it's a sweater and it's graded for 5 sizes, we check to make sure not only the math work for that pattern, but that, pieces of the garment works, like the arm depth is correct for each given size. The back width will accommodate a small size or a big size, all that stuff. We work with the designer to make the pattern clear and that the end user, you, the knitter, the crocheter, have a great experience with the pattern. We want to make sure that the pattern version that you get is the best that's possible. And that's what tech editors do. I mean, it's a lot more in depth than that, and I will go into that in season 2, but I just want to lay out the framework because this episode is getting pretty long. How to become a tech editor? Lately, I've been getting this question a lot. And if y'all want a course of, of me walking you through how I get the bulk of my clients, I can definitely do a course on that. There are no processes. There is no trail that you can take to become a tech editor and get clients, but there are some best practices. There's things that I've done. There are things that I've worked with other tech editors to do, and things I've seen other tech editors do that I'd love to share with you if that is something you're interested in. The bottom line is to land new clients, start sharing what you're capable of. Maybe it's writing a blog post, maybe not a blog post, but blog posts, plural. Or maybe it's sharing on Instagram a pattern that you came across and errors that you've caught. Maybe you want to, mark some stuff up and show it, how you would fix it. I mean, you don't want to bash anybody when you do something like this, so just be careful if that's the route you're gonna go. I mean, to get new clients, you have to show your work. You just have to show what you're doing and how you're doing it. Whether that's writing blog posts, whether that's doing Instagram lives and talking about it, is it doing posts? Maybe you're going through a magazine or a book and you found some errors. Maybe you want to take a quick snapshot of that you've marked up, eliminating any vital information of the designer or the magazines or things like that might be harmful. But that's one way you could do it. You could reach out to designers that you admire, offer your service. Maybe if you have a friend that's a designer, you can work with them in exchange for their testimonial or something like that. You can cold email people. I do have some strategies around that. If you're interested, let me know. Because there are ways to cold email and there's ways not to cold email. So let me know. But the bottom line is it won't happen overnight. But with consistency, you'll definitely get there. Post on social, create a blog, create a YouTube, create a podcast. Get the word out about what you're doing. Show what you know. Reach out to people. Show the work that you want to do. I mean, like I said, there are no etiquettes or protocols for doing that, about reaching out to people. I mean, there are no etiquettes and protocols for doing that. Making those cold emails, which we really don't have the time to go into here today in this episode, but definitely reach out if you have some specific question. I'd love to work with you on that. But yeah, like everything else, you just have to put yourself out there and be seen. All right, so I have one other question that snuck in, and that is, what advice do you have for a new designer, tech editor, designer, maker? And that's what we've been talking about all season, and we touched on this a lot during this episode, and it's to show your work. Do the things you love. If you're looking to start designing, and knitting socks is really your jam, start there with designing a sock. Rather than if you're a sock knitter, don't go starting with a sweater in 10 sizes when you've only made one sweater and don't really get the whole grading thing. Okay, so start where you're at. Same with tech editing and dyeing and any creative work. I dabbled in a lot of stuff starting out, throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks instead of focusing in on what I really love to do. It's easy to get distracted by all the shiny objects and you want to do all the things. But if I could go back, I think that's what I would do, is to be more focused and more intentional. A final word before signing off for season 1, I just want to share is don't wait until you feel confident to start. Don't look at where I am now or anyone else's current situation and feel like it's unattainable because we all started at zero. You don't need to be confident or know the hows. You just need courage to start, to step into it, and just have faith that you'll figure it out. So, until season 2, be brave, be courageous, be you. So, that's it for season 1. Thank you again so much for being a part of season 1 of the Real Talk with TN podcast. This has been an amazing experience, and I hope you were able to take away something from each episode. If anything I talked about today resonated with you, please reach out on Instagram. I love to chat there. Please subscribe so when season 2 hits late fall of 2019, I'd love to hear what you've thought of this episode and the whole season. If you were able to use this to start designing or to start tech editing or anything like that, I'd love to hear from you and to support you. Again, if you've enjoyed this episode and this season, please share it with a friend. I'd love your support. I can't wait to talk to you again soon in season 2. Bye for now.